What's going on, guys? Zach here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make epic boss battles with the controller on GameMaker Studio 2. Check out what you're going to be building throughout this tutorial. Alright guys, so welcome to the project. In the description, what I have is the starting build. So basically what we're going to start with throughout this project. All of the art assets will be included, and I have some code for the movement system as well as a cool blood system in the game. And then also in the description is going to be the final version. So what you can do is you can download here, you can go along, or you could just get the final version and tweak it and do other things like that, learn from it that way. Whichever way you'd like to go. So what I'm going to do real quick is show you what I already have in this project. Again, it's available for download in the description. Here we have a player object, a bullet object. We have our environment, so we have a O block, which is just basically the collision that we're going to be using. We have a platform here, which is just a very uniquely coded way to jump up through platforms, then you can't come back down. In case in this version though, in our gamepad, if we hit the down arrow on the controller, then we can fall through it. So you can take a look at this code as well. We have some spikes, so O spike, and then actually this should be changed to that. And then our effects, so we have our blood and then our blood controller. So we have nothing in the room yet. And that's the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to create the environment for our room. And then we're going to go into boss logic. So how do we want this boss to play out? All right, so go ahead, download that, and then come back and we can get started. So in our room here, I'm going to go ahead and actually rename it real quick. This is going to be boss room. And I want a very specific resolution to the game. So I'm going to go down here in our room editor, our properties. And I'm going to make the width 1536 by 896. All right, so that's going to give us this room here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create, or we're going to enable viewports, clear the viewport background, make it visible, and we're just going to put in the same number. So 1536, 896. And what this allows us to do is later on we can add some screen shake effects. So we can start using views in our game. All right, so I'm gonna make the grid 64 by 64. Now, if you're not familiar with GameMaker Studio 2 and you need a couple short tips on how to use GameMaker Studio 2, how to navigate the software correctly, I have a link in the description of a course that you can download to help you with that. But for now, I'm gonna assume that you have used GameMaker Studio 2 before, and this is a pretty advanced tutorial. All right, so I'm going to be going kind of quick. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put our blocks in here. So this is basically just going to be the collision around our room. All right, so I'm going to create blocks all around here. And we'll probably do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that looks good. And then we're going to want the center. So maybe like that. So there we go. That's going to be the basic room. Let me add in some more platforms here. Maybe we'll just add something like this, kind of like you saw in the beginning. Sort of come up like that. All right, that's just kind of how I want the room to look. And now we can add in our spikes. So these are basically going to be hazard spikes that you can't touch or else you're going to die, which makes you have to jump over this little platform here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the grid X and Y. We'll say 32. So we'll get some more here. And if you hit Alt, you can go ahead and you don't have to keep dragging over. So it just takes the last possible thing. And then let's create some here as well. All right, then let's change our Y to maybe 8 and our grid X to 16. And now here we can start adding in a couple more spikes. Actually, I don't think I like that one there. Let's bring it down a little bit. There we go. So we'll add it over here as well. Bring that one down. I'll put one right here. There we go. So now we got some spikes in our room. Now let's do the same for the top. So I'll put one here, here, here. So what you should note from this is that our actual block that we're seeing right here is not going to be visible. We're going to overlay a tile set with it. So we're just going to see the very tips of it coming out there, which I think looks cool. And so what I want these things to do is it's going to have a preset timer so that eventually what's going to happen is they're going to start shaking and then they'll fall and they can obviously kill the player. Let's add the player into the game as well. And let's change it back to 64 by 64. And I think that looks good. So let's add in our tile set real quick to make it look good. In my environment folder, I've added a tile set. So what we could do is we create a new tile set, call it T set, grab over the sprite, and then in our tile width and height, I want to say 64 and 64. So now what we can do in our room here is we can add a new tile layer and put it over instances so that the tiles are above the instances layer, and you can see by the depth there. Actually, you know what? I think it should be the other way. I think it should be up. There we go. So now the depth is 0, and then the instances are at depth 100. So what you should note from that is that the depth, the higher or the lower the depth is, the farther out in the screen you'll see it. So if there was a block of 0 depth and the player was -1 depth, our player would appear above that block. All right, so let's go ahead and choose that tile set, and now we can put it into the room. So I'll put the corners in. Then we can drag up there, drag over here. And then we can kind of close it off. Just like that. So now we actually have a cool looking room. I'm actually going to import a background as well. And it's going to be this background here. And I'll have that included in the description as well. And we can make that the background. So we'll add the sprite from our environment to that. And now, just like that, in only a couple minutes, we have a cool looking room. I'm going to rename this to S background. And I'm going to add in my blood controller here. Oh, make sure we're on the instances layer. And let's run the game. So what's cool about this boss is that you can make any sort of room that you'd like in the game. All right, so first off, what we want to do is we want to say, okay, these hazards actually have to do something. So when we go inside of that hazard, then we want the blood to spray out, which I've previously done in the code. So all we have to do for that is say a collision with our spike, instance destroy. And I'm going to duplicate that and collision with our other spike, our spike 2, instance destroy. So let's go ahead and run the game. And we're getting a quick error. And I believe that's just in our platform there, because I didn't actually test that out beforehand. So what you want to do is in your O platform in the step event, the reason we're getting that error is because we're using O player. And when O player gets destroyed, it's trying to find an O player object in the room. And when it can't find it, it can no longer check this statement, right? So we have to say if instance exists O player. Then what we can do is run this code. So in other words, this right here, instance exists, checks, hey, is this player actually in the game or this object? And if it is, then we can run this code. If not, then we're not going to run this code. So let's go ahead and try that one more time. So boom, we splat right on it and everything looks cool. As you can see, there's a little bit of a blood glitch there where it's not actually on the spike. And that's because in our O spike up, in our collision mask, what's actually happening here is that's the collision mask. So it is slower, but if we go to our type and we say precise, it'll give us a precise collision mask around our sprite. We'll do the same thing with the down and we'll try that again. So now we won't be getting that weird floating blood glitch. So there we go. So now it works. All right, so now we have our environment set up and we're ready to implement the boss. So let's stop wasting time and let's do that. So how we're going to implement this boss is pretty simple. We're going to have him have 2 unique moves, okay? You could obviously add to these moves if you'd like. So here I'm going to draw up my room a little bit just so I can demonstrate what we're going to be doing. And you kind of saw originally in that first clip. But this is actually what I originally did to create the boss. And I said, okay, how am I going to actually implement something like this? What do I want this boss to do? So here at our platforms. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to have like a little intro to the boss. I want the boss to come from the top. We'll start here. And one of the main ideas I had with this boss is that he would spray out spikes. Let me get a different color for this. He'll spray out spikes like this. And then what he'll do is he'll rotate his body 45 degrees. And then spray out of still his sides, but because he's rotated 45 degrees, then it'll come out from the diagonal. Then he'll rotate another 45 degrees, come out of these angles again, rotate another 45 degrees, come out of these angles again, all the way full circle. And that's kind of a cool move that I thought would be pretty cool, right? So after he does that, what I want him to do is to go back up and he'll select one of 4 positions to sort of come down on the player and try and smash the player. Okay, so those positions are going to be this one here, this one here, this one here, and then the 4th position is actually going to be a unique position, which means that it's not going to be statically held in memory with the X and Y location of where he wants to go. It's going to be where the player is. So if the player's here, we can select to come down here. All right, or if the player's here, he'll select, and the player actually will make it so that the player has just a fragment second of time to where he can lunge out of the way to avoid that. So that's basically the moves we want to do. So once he drops from here, you go, okay, what does he want to do? So then what he's going to do is he's going to select, okay, do I go back up and I select another route, or can I pick any random position throughout the room, go to that position, and then do my original shooting with the spikes? Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do. Sounds fun. So you'll notice once you download the project that our boss is actually tilted to the side, which is weird. And the reason we're doing this is because with GameMaker Studio, they have a very unique direction system in the game. So I want them to start here, because then what we're going to do is when we tilt the actual sprite 45 degrees each time, there's a weird bug where if we start from the top, it's actually going to spin around a bunch. And I'll show that to you right here on the screen. And we don't want that to happen. We want it to be very fluent, and then at the very end of it, we can kick it back. So also what you're seeing here is the direction chart for GameMaker, and I'll have a link in the description for this as well. This is what helped me throughout this process, and you can see what directions are what. And so what we're going to do is we're originally, when we start up the sprite, we're going to set its image angle to 90 degrees. And the reason we do that is because 90 degrees will shift it 90 degrees counterclockwise, so it looks like it'll be up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create an object. I'm going to create a group first. I'm going to call it boss, and I'm going to create boss intro, and this is going to be the introduction of the boss coming down like I originally said. So we'll give it that sprite there. Also, these sprites here are just for when the boss gets mad. So the lower the HP, he'll change the sprite. Alright, so in our boss intro in the create event, I want to set its HP to equal 100. I want to set its move to equal 0, and I'll talk about what that variable does in detail in a minute. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to say vSpeed equals 5, image angle equals 90, and our image speed equals 0.5. I'm actually going to comment out this vSpeed right here, just because I want to show you some things. Oops. So let's go ahead and put that boss into the room. And let's run the game. So as you can see, since we sent that image angle to 90, we now have the boss looking upright at us. And as you can see, I mean, it is a huge cinder block basically that we have. So it looks kind of weird that he's just kind of sitting there. Let's make it so that it looks like it's floating just a little bit. All right, so that's what these variables coming up are going to do. So I'm going to say z equals 0, dir underscore z equals 0, and dir underscore c equals 0. All right, and I'll show you what those do in a second. So we go to the step event, and this is just going to be basically like a bobbing or a floating effect that we have. So I'm going to say if vSpeed equals 0, because we only want him to like sort of look like he's floating when he's just standing there or floating there. So what we're going to say is if dir underscore c is greater than or equal to 2, we're going to create a variable bobbing equals 10, and this is going to be the fluctuation on how far he bobs. And we're going to say if dir underscore z equals 0, then we're going to say if z is greater than or equal to negative bobbing, z minus minus, else dir z equals 1. Here we can say else if dir underscore z equals 1, then we're going to say if z is less than or equal to bobbing, z plus plus, else dir underscore z equals 0. What we're also going to do is clamp. We're going to say z equals clamp z negative bobbing bobbing. We're going to set dir c to equal 0. And we're going to say else dir c plus plus. So let's figure out, this is a lot of stuff that's going on right here. So basically what we're doing is we're saying, okay, what is this dir c variable? So this is basically the direction change. So in my testing, what I found was that we're actually bobbing up and down too fast. So here what we're saying is every 2 steps, we're actually going to be going through this instead of every single step, which is greater than or equal to 2. So if it's 1 or 0, then we're just going to add to it. And if it's obviously 2 or greater, then we're going to go through this code. So now of our variable bobbing 10, that's going to be 10 pixels up and down. And then this is right here is just basic code to say, okay, if our dir z equals 0, then we're going to want to go in the up direction, and once we hit that limit of negative bobbing, then we're going to hit it to 1, which means we're going to want to be going in the down direction. So in the draw event here, we can simply draw the sprite. So I'm going to say draw sprite ext, sprite index, image index, x, y, and we're going to say plus z, x scale 1, y scale 1. Our rotation is going to be image angle, color C white, and our alpha is 1. So if we go ahead and run the game now, as you can see, oh, he looked like he was bobbing there for a second, but he didn't quite go down. Maybe let's try and take out the clamping. Let's try it again. There we go. So the clamping was throwing it off. All right. So it doesn't even look like we need the clamping. So now, as you can see, and I'm hitting square to fire the bullets, we have a cool little bobbing effect for our boss. All right. So in the create event, let's set our v-speed equal 5 again. And what I'm going to want to do is in our boss room, let's bring him above the room, just like that. And now what we want to do is say, okay, once he's in the middle of the room, let's go ahead and change it to our actual boss. So if y is greater than or equal to room height divided by 2, let's say minus 128, that's what I found worked well. If our move equals 0, move equals 1, v-speed equals 0, we're going to set alarm 0 to equal room speed multiplied by 2, our image speed equals 0, and our image index equals 0. Okay, so what's this move variable that I was talking to you about? Basically, what we're going to be using throughout these bosses, the main function for these bosses, I'm telling it what to do, when and where, is going to be based on this move variable. Okay, so essentially what we're doing here is saying if move equals 0, we want to perform this action one time, and which we will because we're going to set move to 1 and this no longer holds true. We're going to be doing this a bunch with the other boss as far as, okay, what does he do next, so on and so forth. And in our alarm 0, what we can simply do is say boss equals instance create depth at our x, our y, depth 0, and our O boss, which we could now create O boss. And here we can set in a lot of the same values we had here. So if we copy that, paste it down, we can get rid of that v speed there though. And we can even copy over our draw. And in our step event with our bobbing, we can also copy that over as well. Something really cool in GameMaker, what we can do is if we say hashtag region and we comment, let's say, bobbing effect, and at the end of this code here, we say hashtag end region, and we save it, we can now minimize this section of code so we don't need to look at it because basically we're never going to be going back into there again. All right, so in our OBoss intro, what we're going to do is in alarm 0, we're going to say boss.z equals z, boss.dirz equals dirz, boss.dirc equals dirc, and boss.hp equals HP, in case our player gets any hits off on our intro boss before it changes. We want to bring that over. Then we're just going to instance destroy this variable. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're just translating over what these variables might be so that we don't get a weird stagnated effect when we create the new boss. So let's go ahead and run the game. So he's coming down, he switches, and then he comes back. So now we are looking at our actual boss character, and now we can get into the actual code of what our boss is going to do. But that's going to be it for today. Go leave a like, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial when we're going to start actually creating the boss logic in our game, which is the most fun part. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.